Okay, we're moving on to our next work session, which is an update report from the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I think there's a number of people here. Judith, David, Kelsey, John, they're all listed here if you want to come up, or if there's designated folks. Feel free to pull up a few more chairs. We appreciate the involvement.
So I have to press it.
When it's off, it's on. Okay, whenever you're ready.
All right. All right. Well, thank you again, Council. Just for the record, my name is Harrison Houston. I am a transportation planner with the Community Planning Department. Kind of one of my responsibilities in my role is to serve as the staff coordinator for the Clark Community's Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Just to do a quick intro, and then I'll pass it over to some of our members who are here to give kind of their annual presentation and report. So the committee was formed back in 2010, kind of as a result of the county's bicycle and pedestrian master plan. The group's main charge is to advise the county on kind of the implementation of that plan. We have a really great group of volunteers on the committee. As I mentioned today, they're here to kind of provide you with an annual presentation. The group is kind of supposed to have a joint meeting with council annually, and I think it's something that we just haven't been able to do in the last couple of years. So we kind of thought this work session might be a great opportunity to kind of reestablish that working relationship. Kind of from there, I'll pass it off to our committee chair, Judith Perez-Keniston, to introduce some of the rest of the members.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and councilors. My name is Judith. For the record, my name is Judith Perez-Keniston, and I'm the chair of the Clark Community's Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, also known as BPAC. Fellow BPAC members next to me are Kelsey and David and John, and they will introduce themselves momentarily. I guess I can move on so that people can have a little more room. Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you today and discuss what we're doing as a committee. We are hoping today is the beginning of many, many opportunities to collaborate in the development of a safe, comfortable, and accessible transportation system to all users, regardless of mode choice, ability, or income. During our presentation today, we will describe BPAC's purpose as an advisory to you. We'll introduce our current committee members, define the concept of active transportation, and explain why active transportation is important in Clark County. We will also talk about the accomplishments and the challenges of our 2024 work plan, and lastly, introduce our 2025 work plan. Next slide, please. So BPAC is a 9-member committee. The committee was created, as Harrison said, in 2010 after the adoption of the Clark County Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan. Through our bylaws, the committee has been tasked with advice on the implementation of the master plan, review transportation project proposals impacting bicycle and pedestrian usage, also advise on the design and implementation of a comprehensive active transportation network, amongst others. I would like to take a moment to recognize Dylan Bass with the Washington State Department of Transportation, Jennifer Campos with the Regional Transportation Council, Brett Satterfield with the City of Vancouver, and Amy Koschke with Clark County Public Health for consistently attending our meetings, bringing active transportation matters to our attention, and for the collaborative effort to help transform Clark County as a vibrant community with safe, reliable, and affordable ways for people to get around. Next slide, please. BPAC members are appointed by County Council and serve a 4-year term. Committee members are subject matter experts in active transportation. We represent active transportation users of all ages and abilities. As you can see on this slide, our 9-member group represent diverse backgrounds. We have a transportation planner, a doctor, a facility manager, a state legislative liaison, a communications manager, and several retired members that bring their expertise as engineers, economists, etc. So next, John will define active transportation and explain why it is an important element in Clark County's transportation network. John?
Thank you, Judith. Thank you, counselors, for having us. My name's John Vanderberg. Active transportation is a term that comes up often in traffic infrastructure. And it is being discussed here as a simplified definition of active transportation. And I'd like to share a broader definition as WSDOT defines it. Active transportation is a human scale and or human powered means of travel to get from one place to another. It includes walking, biking, using a mobility assistance device such as a wheelchair or a walker, and also using micromobility devices such as e-bikes and e-foot scooters. Across our county, agencies are planning and building active transportation networks, making it safe and more convenient for people to get where they need to go on foot and by bicycle. Some of the various options considered are the following, ranked from safest to least safe. You have your shared use path, which is a type of pathway that's separated from the roadway, like along the Patton Expressway. You have a raised bicycle lane separated from the road by a curb and a sidewalk raised separating it again. Separated buffered bicycle lanes, like along Columbia and what I see now on 4th Plain. Buffered bicycle lanes, conventional bicycle lanes such as a painted stripe along the side of the road. And then last is your shared lane markings where bicycles act as a vehicle in the road with cars. And that tends to get you honked at if you're on the bicycle. The main key in the end is to have a complete network, one that is interconnected. And that's the problem, is that so often we do a little piece here and a little piece there. Very similar to an electric grid or a sewer system. If an active transportation network is not connected, it is far less effective. It becomes frustrating when it is not safe or connected as you might like it to be when attempting to navigate the system. That is why investment in active transportation is so critical. There are plenty of places around the county that could be made safer if these efforts are prioritized and receive more support. Next slide, please. Safer streets are for everyone. I heard a Portland transportation official comment recently that we've spent over 100 years designing a system to move vehicles around quickly. So it will take considerable time adjusting our road network to include active transportation options. Some of the considerations taken into account when planning new infrastructure are safety, directness, comfort, coherence, attractiveness, and adaptability. It simply makes economic sense. Bicycling needs to be looked at as an economic alternative, serving the estimated 25 to 30% of Washington adult citizens that choose not to have a driver's license or not drive. Disabled citizens are 4 times more likely not to be drivers. Statistics show bicycling consistently increasing and up to 10% more than the year before. When my parents came to the United States in the early 50s, my mother made comment that an adult on a bicycle, you'd just be laughed at and things, whereas now it's becoming much more of a mode of transportation for many people, and especially younger people want it as an option. And so in closing, I'd say there's 4 types of riders. You have the strong and the fearless, You have the enthused and the confident. You have the interested but concerned. And at the end, you have those that have no other option, but it's better than walking and more affordable than a car. The bottom line in the end is that for younger adults, potential new work talent, it's attracted to places where you have a more robust and connected bicycle infrastructure. So, next slide, Kelsey, thanks.
Thank you again for having us. And for the record, I'm Kelsey Hewalt. Now we'd like to walk you through some of our 2024 work plan accomplishments. Our BPAC was tasked with reviewing and providing feedback to the Clark County Comprehensive Plan, specifically with the active transportation related policies in the transportation element. As you may be aware, House Bill 1181 requires that Clark County add a climate change element to its comprehensive plan. The mandate is for us to use our Growth Management Act, or GMA, comprehensive plan to build resilience and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Active transportation is one strategy that we can use to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled, lessening our footprint. For terminology review, vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, is the sum of the number of miles driven by vehicles. It's an important traffic parameter in how most traffic-related greenhouse gas emissions are calculated. It also can be looked at as an indicator of the health of a multimodal transportation system, where reduced VMT can indicate that there are alternative transportation options besides single occupancy vehicles. Thus, there is less reliance on personal vehicles, less time in cars, and benefits for health, equity, and the environment. It is also a tool. Therefore, VMT reduction is a tool for improved climate outcomes. It is also a tool for accessibility, equity, and safety. But to achieve any of those wonderful outcomes, we must create a well-connected active transportation network. We have an exciting opportunity to achieve this mandate by encouraging and investing in active transportation infrastructure. Building and maintaining safe routes to community destinations such as grocery stores, parks, and schools by active modes is crucial to reducing VMT. It will in turn also serve our growing senior and disabled population, parents, and youth. The BPAC recommends for the climate element to include policies that will encourage the implementation of an active transportation network in Clark County. Next slide, please. As we mentioned, we have a diverse team of volunteers with all different backgrounds representing different parts of the counties, all with a shared vision of a well-connected network of active transportation facilities that are accessible to all. In addition to this, our BPAC team disperses each month back into the community, and we have a representative at several different safety and education programs so that we can create cohesion across the community and stay informed. I attend the Clark County Parks Advisory Board on behalf of BPAC. John attends the Intertwine Alliance, a bi-state group with Oregon, and Michael has been our liaison to Bike Clark County. He also volunteers with the Bike Clark County High School Leadership Program. Next slide, please. If you tune into our meetings, you'll see that agencies from the local to state level participate, including the Clark County Public Health, WSDOT, City of Vancouver, and the RTC, for example. They help keep us informed and allow us to contribute our input into their important work. We're also excited to announce that on May 30th, we will have a premier event for our regional policymakers as part of Bike Month. We're inviting our regional policymakers, including each of you, to join us for the morning. You can participate in either a short bike ride or a mobility tour on C-Tran. This way, you can experience and learn about local active transportation facilities, the current gaps in our systems, and opportunities for improvement, as well as get a sneak preview of what is already on its way in terms of improvements. Our hope is to highlight the experience of bicyclists and pedestrians and inspire our policymakers to continue their excellent efforts toward expanding this to all members of our community so that we can have a universally accessible, cohesive, and safe active transportation network. We'll leave information and follow up with invites. And now I'm going to hand it off to Dave.
Hello, counselors, and thank you.
Yeah, I think you'll need to be closer to a microphone.
Okay. Good morning, counselors, and thank you for this opportunity to explain our work. My name is Dave Zillavy. I'm a member of your Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and I think we're all here for the same reason. We all want to help improve this beautiful place where we live and do our part to help make Clark County a vibrant and healthy community. And so I'm here today to talk about the challenges facing this committee and by extension, the challenges facing this county. Your Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee finds that we are not making as much progress on bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure as we could and should for the growing number of citizens we have in our county. For example, the active transportation network that was identified in the 2010 Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan remains largely incomplete, even though it was adopted by this body as part of the county's comprehensive master plan. So clearly something is missing. In 2022, volunteers from this group inventoried every single mile of public roadway in Clark County to assess the 2010 Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan versus reality. We found that the vast majority of proposed bike lanes and bike paths and sidewalks and other infrastructure dedicated to active transportation has gone unfunded and unbuilt. This matters because it limits safe options for healthy recreation and active transportation for the residents of our county. We found that in almost 15 years of time, only 4 out of 40 prioritized active transportation infrastructure projects were built. Think about that. That equates to just about 10% of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan. Adopted and approved by this body, just 10% built in 15 years. I mean, I feel we are missing out on opportunities to weave this infrastructure into all of our transportation projects. We make no mistake, we are deeply appreciative of all transportation projects that include active transportation components. And we cheer the planners and engineers who work so hard in this regard. And they do. And it's wonderful what we do have. However, because of the statistics just mentioned, we believe Clark County should significantly increase its efforts and investments in active transportation projects to foster a safe, vibrant, and healthy community, while also working to meet our climate goals. It's a twofer. The demand is here, and many studies show that if we build it, people will use it. And this is exactly where we can help you. Our subject matter expertise can be put to use at no taxpayer cost. This committee plans to review all county transportation design drawings at 30 and 60% completion. It's at this early level that we can truly fulfill our advisory purpose. Currently, we do not review all county transportation projects. And as you might notice, it is one of our 2025 goals to achieve this level of involvement to ensure that our master plan facilities are designed and built with all road users in mind. For now, I want to leave you with this. Just imagine if we did have a coordinated and safe bicycle and pedestrian network throughout this county, from La Center Ridge to Ridgefield, Vancouver to Washougal, Camas to Battleground, Yakult to Amboy, a connecting system that pedestrians and bicyclists can use. I feel this type of infrastructure is what separates amazing counties and amazing places from those that are just average. More children getting outside and active, families together, commuters using it. I could hop on my bike in Brush Prairie and ride 10 miles to Bowers Corner Farm and fill my panniers with hazelnuts. People from Ridgefield could ride to Battleground for brunch. You know, right now it can't be done safely. The default option today is a car. And if you lead this county to build active transportation infrastructure, we would be building literally pathways to a healthier and more vibrant community. What a beautiful inheritance it would be to the people of the future. And that's the reason we're all here. And thanks for listening. And I'm going to give it back to the chair, Judith.
Thank you, David. Next slide, please. So we have developed a comprehensive work plan for 2025. Our plan contains 2 goals and 12 action strategies. You can find our work plan and action strategies in the annual report that you have in your meeting materials. So I would like to highlight 2 out of the 12 action strategies mentioned on the work plan. So as David mentioned just earlier, one of the most important tasks included is the review of all of Clark County's transportation projects design plans at 30 and 60% completion. So by evaluating existing and proposed activity transportation projects, we assist staff in ensuring that bicycle and pedestrian facilities meet standards and they meet the needs of users of all abilities. The second strategy I'd like to mention is our role as your advisor in the implementation of the county's bicycle and pedestrian master plan. So to attain this, we are currently conducting a comprehensive review of the priority active transportation network that David mentioned, which is identified on the 2010 master plan. So our next step is that we will propose facilities to complete those gaps, the network gaps that exist today. And this exercise will assist staff in developing a list of priority projects, which hopefully will be integrated as part of the transportation element of the comprehensive plan to address the new multimodal GMA requirements. So during the next part of our presentation, we would like to share with you a handful of pictures of roadways in Clark County and walk you through some of the challenges we see as active transportation users. David, you're on.
Slide, please. Here you can see the intersection of 78th Street and Hazeldale. And what happens here is a biker, the bike lanes disappear around the area of I-5. And so the safety is gone. You've either got to hop up on a sidewalk and it just pinches. But this is a prime example of what John was talking about, that parts of it are installed and parts of it are not installed. And this is a super busy area and kind of a popular one. I think a lot of people would use it more if they felt safe using it. Next slide, please. Here on the Minnehaha Street slide, what I'd like to point out are no sidewalks. And so there are, along that route between Highway 99 and St. John's, there are several apartment units there, tucked into the north side, and also residential housing, but no sidewalks. That is the cars, wide road, fly through there. And you can see there's plenty of room for a bigger bike lane. So this would be a project perhaps of just restriping, but also sidewalks for pedestrians. The picture on the right, 119th Street, this is just to the east side of 117th. You can see Prairie High School and Winco are right near there. And there's a prime example of, you might have seen all those apartment buildings going in on the west side, right on 119th. There's no sidewalk. Kids walking to school, people walking to Winco to use to get groceries. There's no sidewalk. And this is what happens. People just walk on the shoulder of the road and the risk increases significantly. So I think these are all our slides. Is that correct? And I think that's the end of our presentation.
We have one more slide,
One
sorry.
more slide. Okay.
So in closing, we have covered a lot of ground today. What we hope is that you see that we are your allies in active transportation. We're volunteering in this committee to help inform the development of active transportation facilities for the betterment of the people of Clark County. So through a safe and cohesive active transportation network, we can strengthen community ties, encourage healthy physical activity, and also expand transportation choices in Clark County. Thank you so much for your time and attention. And at this point, we're happy to answer any questions that you might have for us.
Before I call on the counselors, I just want to thank you all. The work that you're doing, I couldn't be more grateful for the work that you're doing. The work that you're doing as a committee, as volunteers, is really the most we could expect from any of our committees. And we rely on our committees to inform us. And I very, very much appreciate your candor in describing some of the shortcomings. So we can't move forward unless we know what we need to do. So you pointed that out very, very well. So with that, I'll turn it over to any of the counselors if you have questions or comments.
Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and for this presentation. You know, when I lived in Portland for a few years in Northeast, I ride my bike everywhere. PSU, PCC, put it on the max to Washington County. Washington County had a pretty decent network of bike lanes and sidewalks. And I moved out here and I live in East Vancouver, so it's fairly urban. And I try to figure out how I can get from point A from where I live to work on a bike route. And there was an issue. Some of the bike lanes disappeared, right? And that's scary living in suburban Vancouver because traffic is not very safe oftentimes. And so I avoided riding a bike. And so you made this point earlier today that we don't have an interconnected network. And that becomes a challenge. It discourages people from wanting to ride a bike, right? When you're having to jump on an active roadway. In addition, a lot of our unincorporated neighborhoods don't have sidewalks. So I know we hear this a lot from elected officials, from community leaders, that we want healthy communities, but we're not really doing a heck of a lot to encourage it if we don't have sidewalk, if we don't have an interconnected network of bicycle lanes, for example. We'll have a bridge pretty soon that's going to better connect us with the city of Portland, and I'm hoping a light rail that will better connect us with the city of Portland, which will also include a bike lane right across the bridge. And so this is a time for us to act, I believe, and start fully supporting these type of projects and these type of initiatives. So yeah, that's my comment. So thank you. I think this is a great plan. And I'm sorry that in 15 years, there hasn't been done a lot. But I think this is the time for us to move forward and support it even more.
Councillor Young?
Yes, thank you. And Chair, I echo your comments. I absolutely appreciate people willing to donate their most precious resource, which is time, you know, to helping us have good policy and a good transportation system. You have brought a lot of things to light. I appreciate that we have had this conversation. You know, we are spread thin on so many different subjects, and sometimes it really takes a good reminder like this for work that we need to do. I had a couple questions that were more for staff at this point, generated by some of the discussion. Do we still have staff in the room?
Yes, we do. And he's making his way forward, or maybe ask your question and we'll figure out who
Sure,
should
yes.
come forward.
So the first question that I have is, wherein lies our policy in terms of, you know, I want to call it complete streets. I mean, things are handled much differently in county versus a city. Where is that policy? And I'm hoping that we can review that and take a look and see if we need to make some changes to that.
Councilor Young, this is Ken Lader. To answer your question, so I think part of what you can't see in the BPAC presentation, and I would also like to say 100% agree. We, all of our projects that we do, the improvements for major arterials, collectors, our transportation, large capital projects that you see do include multimodality and what's been defined today as active transportation. I don't think you guys would disagree with that. And I think, you know, what's missing maybe is what the road looks like on the west side of SR 503 over 117th, where we have widened and improved that area, whether it was with wider sidewalks or bike lanes, or to the north on 94th Avenue, between 94th Avenue and SR 503 at 99th Street, where we just did the roundabout corridor. You know, I think you guys listed as your top safety use would be the multi-use path, you know, a shared use path for pedestrians and bicycles that's separated from the roadway. So we are, it is our policy to include those elements. In fact, it's really a requirement and an expectation for us to be able to apply for federal dollars or state dollars to have those, that modality and safety built into our transportation projects. I think the real issue that I'm hearing here is the lack of connectivity once you get outside those project areas. And I think I could quite plainly state that we don't have a policy that's in place to address what that looks like, other than the master plan and the comp plan that would really address how do we provide for connectivity on a purely rural road. And same issue for sidewalks, same issue for cyclists. You know, I guess the question that I'm left with today is one of funding and how we make that happen in a large county with a lot of road miles, as you all know. So, and I don't know if I fully answered your question, but
No,
hopefully I did.
I think that was a very good answer, Ken. I think we have some work that we can do to look at, you know, when we're repaving, what is our policy? But I respect the fact that there is a lot of diversity in the roads in the county. We have a lot of lane miles and there are significant budget restraints. So
yeah,
I think there needs to be, we really need to come up with a real policy and take a look at the overall budget and see if we may need to make a shift and some priorities. You know, look at the entirety of the system and find out where those holes are. And I'm a real big believer in bang for your buck. You know, I don't want to spend a huge amount of our budget on one street or one project where we can fill in gaps all over the place for that same amount of dollars. But this is where it comes to our advisory group. You know, those kinds of things are, those kinds of, they can hash out that policy in terms of what works best for them. I ride an electric scooter on the roads. I don't ride bikes and I don't walk very often. So I don't have those different perspectives, and that's where the value, excuse me, comes in of our advisory group. So I would love for maybe in the next few months for us to be able to have kind of like a work session, maybe not a plan, but just kind of a work session to let us know, you know, how the decisions are being made, when we're incorporating complete streets and multimodal, and whether we're doing independent projects with our dollars, or if we're only sticking to projects that we are already repaving or we're restriping a road for whatever reason, you know, whether we invest funds completely independently or only as part of an overall road project. So those kinds of decisions I'd like to kind of talk about and figure out a path forward to where we can make the entirety of the system improved. The other question that I had was about the 30 and 60%. I respect that I'm not a traffic engineer and I'm not staff, and so I don't know what that involvement looks like, but from me sitting here looking at it, I can see extreme value for touches with the committee, you know, at the early stages of our project. So, you know, unless there is some things that I'm not thinking about it, would it be possible for us to be, you know, have more coordination with the committee on our projects at those various levels so that they can weigh in?
And I can answer that question. Absolutely. And I'd like to take some ownership here. There was a request that came to me in October from Harrison that I found yesterday unopened in my email box, which is not an uncommon occurrence, unfortunately. But that's on me. And it was really a request for us to connect and meet more regularly. I would like to say, not as a defense, but just as information, because I don't want to make an excuse, and I'll explain that in a second. But we definitely, I don't think this was as much COVID related as maybe some of the public works leadership back in years past. We had so much turnover that I don't think we have anybody on staff that was involved in those reviews with BPAC, and that's a misstep. And I never picked it back up. Didn't realize that was missing from our process. Was disappointed to see that we had dropped the ball there. So absolutely 30%, 60%. If there's value at other milestones, great. But those are the early decision points for a lot of these items on our transportation projects that we need to evaluate. And I welcome the input. And maybe to go back just for a second, my son, I only have one child. He bikes to school regularly, 3.5 miles each way. It's in the city, so you know I won't harp on Vancouver, but you know it's a petrifying experience for a parent to have your kid do that. And I think he's number 2, enthusiastic and confident, but maybe too confident. And I love to see him have that independence, and even getting from our house that 3.5 miles, he's doing some, you know, on the sidewalk, off the sidewalk, through a signal, on the crosswalk, bike lanes in some spots and not in others. So it just for that section. So I'm definitely sympathetic to the argument, and look forward to what we can do.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. So kind of what I think about is, and when I'm talking about looking at the funding and how we prioritize it, you know, if we had a certain amount of funding that we could set aside that were for specific projects that aren't necessarily related to an overall traffic project that we have. So for example, and this is where the advisory board could be really helpful, is pointing out these flaws, these really big flaws, you know, and we can look at those and maybe fund that even independent of an overall traffic project to fill that void. You know, those are the kinds of things, and I agree with you with your kids. Same thing with mine. I would send my kids to school on bikes. You know, they can drive up through our neighborhood safely. They can go up Bernie Drive safely, and then you get to Lakeshore, and it is a death trap for bikes and pedestrians from that point north. So, you know, things like that, I'd love for us to take a look at. And I acknowledge funding is going to be a major challenge, but if we don't take a look at it, we are certainly not going to make as much progress as we otherwise could. So appreciate your work, appreciate those comments and your willingness to work more closely with the advisory board.
Thank you. Other comments from councilors?
Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I have another question. And we talked about interconnectedness. How in the city of Vancouver is doing a great job of increasing the number of miles for bicyclists. How closely, particularly in the urban growth or immediately outside of the city limits and within the unincorporated Clark County urban area, and I think this question might be for you, are you guys working with the city of Vancouver to make sure that their bike lanes are connected with our bike lanes?
So where we interface with the city, we do work with Ryan Laposa and Transportation for the city to look at those issues. But I think you can find examples where the striping doesn't get established, or whether we've gone back in and done a pavement preservation and restriped and missed something. You know, the example of 78th and Hazeldale might be an example of that, or Highway 99. So yes, and we can do better. But those interfaces, you know, we don't often have projects that overlap like that, but where we do, we work with the city on them.
Thank you. How about the committee? Are you guys actively in conversations with the city of Portland, and do they have a committee that's similar to yours?
Oops, there we go. There's a group called the Intertwine Alliance that is 3 counties in Oregon, and so the different city leaders in Clark County, I've noticed, are on the mailing list, and they attend the meetings. City of Camas, City of Battleground, City of Ridgefield, I believe. And we also, like Judith pointed out, have regular input from a WSDOT representative, a City of Vancouver representative, from Brett Sutterfield. And so, yes, we do have input and stuff from different agencies and from the health department, because it also affects health and things like that. So yes, we do try and combine resources as much as we can, and understand that funding is the major issue. And I very much appreciate what Mr. Young pointed out, as far as if we could have a pot of money to identify and go after different projects, it would be nice. But it's probably on the wish list right now, but maybe it'll come true. So thank you.
So as John mentioned, we have the Washington State Department of Transportation, the Regional Transportation Council, City of Vancouver, that help us understand what all the connection needs to be. And Regional Transportation Council right now is working on doing exactly what you asked. You know, where are those gaps between the cities and the county? If that facility has a regional significance, how do you get from point A to point B to make sure that there's some type of a cohesiveness? So different parties are doing different things, and we're all working together to ensure that eventually the system is comprehensive and cohesive.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. With that master plan, was there a map that was included that had those routes identified that haven't yet been implemented?
Yeah, there's a map of high priority or priority systems for sidewalks, for pedestrian, and also for bike facilities. And they're divided in different typologies, whether it's a share use path or whether it's a bike lane or on the road type of facility. So yeah, there's different levels, and it's all in a big map.
And will that be updated as part of our comprehensive plan update?
With the, for the record, this is Harrison Husting. For the comp plan update, there are some newer multimodal requirements that are coming out of House Bill 1181. And so local jurisdictions in the state of Washington now need to look at level of service standards for bicycle and pedestrian facilities. So we are going to use the bike and ped master plan as kind of that framework when we are looking at basically the projects that we are going to need to include in our 20-year plan to accommodate for growth. And I don't think while the bike and ped master plan has been part of the comp plan, it has kind of lived as like an appendix, and it's referenced, but the projects haven't really been listed on the 20-year kind of road capital projects as well, if that makes sense.
That does make sense, and it leads me to suggest that your timing is really good to bring this forward now while we're still in the last year of our comp plan update, that this be incorporated into the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. if that's a way to elevate it.
Yes, and so that is something that we are exploring right now with some help of kind of recent consultants. And so once we're kind of working through what those level of service standards might look like or what we might propose. And then once council does approve a land use alternative, we will kind of start working on that, developing that 20-year project list. And at that time, that's kind of when we would bring forth kind of the projects that might work the best with that land use
Great.
alternative.
And you know, the bus rapid transit, where we develop more compact housing, short walks to get to the bus, all of those things, there's opportunities within this comp plan update to integrate all of those things. So that's great. And Ken, I'm really glad that you mentioned paths, because there are areas, there's just no way that you can put in a sidewalk or expand a little further for a lane. But if there is an opportunity for some informal paths, I think, you know, if you travel to other countries in Europe, there's a whole network of informal paths that get people from place to place. Okay. And what else there was? Yeah, so the grant funding opportunities, I was curious about that. And that's something I think we can look at as we move forward. I think that might be it for me. So again, thank you very much. Let's stay in communication. Again, very grateful for the work that you're doing on this. I know it's all voluntary, and your passion for this has shown through this morning. So thanks very much.
Chair?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to also thank you all for what you do. And I'd love to work with you as well on trying to create some kind of countywide policy to promote this, but also to keep in mind traffic flow and patterns and make sure that we don't repeat some of the struggles that Vancouver has had. So really appreciate what you're doing, providing advice to us, and keep it up. Love to work with you closer.
Thank you. I'm glad you had a chance to chime in there, Councillor Little. All right. I think with that, we've completed our work sessions, and we'll reconvene at 1 for council time. Thank you.